we absolutely should have people in every profession who have the straight path, who have the wayward path, who have the in between, because that to somebody is going to be confirmation that their journey is absolutely possible.
So, welcome to the You Are Lawyer podcast. Nikita Lamar, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And where are you located?
I am located in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Ooh. So, are you on vacation? Do you live there? Tell us.
So I live here. I said part-time, but really it's starting to be more full-time. But I live in Mexico and I practice in Houston, Texas, and surrounding areas. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what was that transition like? When did you move to Mexico?
I moved here in September of 2022. So it'll be 4 years that I have been here in September, and it was around like the 22nd, I believe. But it was actually a pretty smooth transition. I had started to become a more virtual firm before I decided to relocate in terms of living. So I was familiar with practicing without having to go into an office. And a few months before I decided to fully transition here living, I decided to give up my office, my brick and mortar office. And so it was a smooth transition in that way, but in other ways, I'm still learning. You know, it is a learning process. Just having a business in general, and then also having a business and living somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. So, 2022, that was after the pandemic. Had you been considering going virtual and then the pandemic kind of gave you the push or what?
Yes, I would say yes. I had an office. I've always had an office. I graduated during the time where I'm sure you've heard, don't be I think they call it a PO box attorney, and you should have a brick and mortar office. And so that was where my head was, making the transition was something that it was already on the horizon. Now living abroad, I've always loved to travel, but I've never had the opportunity to live abroad. And I've been thinking about that prior to the pandemic. I just would think about it on and off though, but I didn't make the connection with that and running my business really until after the pandemic. And because the pandemic showed us that we did not have to be even in the courtroom all the time. We could take care of these matters virtually, things that we never even thought of, or things that we had been asking for before the pandemic and was told no. So I think that made the transition a lot easier in terms of the time. I knew that I didn't want to live in Texas anymore, but I wanted to still have my practice there. And I didn't know where I wanted to go yet. So I said, okay, well, let's just do it for 6 months. And 6 months turned into almost 4 years now.
That is really, really cool. My
Yeah.
husband works for a corporation, and every time he's like, "You want to go travel somewhere for a month?" And he's like, "Well, I have to still be in the States. Like, I think he can't be gone for more than 5 weeks or something because of
Okay.
employer laws and all of that." But with
Hmm.
you running your own business, you're like, "No, I can run it from anywhere, right? As long as you show up for the stuff you need to in Houston." That's pretty
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I can't give myself all the credit. I have a really good team and they're all contract, persons, and they're awesome. And they've been with my firm for a little while now. So those individuals make it possible also for me to do, what it is that I do.
Yeah. I think that's a really important way to think about how we can use our law degrees or even running a business, right? I didn't hear about being a P.O. box lawyer, but I think that is funny. But there was so much power to being in the office together, but that didn't have to be all of it. And for
Yeah.
so long, we thought that was all there was, right? I remember working until the pandemic, and the few months before, you had people who were out with the flu, but they were out for a couple weeks, and then it kept getting longer and longer. And then we found out that it was COVID, probably. And you're right. That did open up a lot of stuff for people, a lot of new options, but everyone didn't take advantage of it. So I
No.
congratulate you. on taking
I
advantage of it.
appreciate that. I mean, I saw a lot of people make transitions, even if they didn't go as far as I did, but making transitions in terms of like some people that I know who mediate a lot of cases, they started taking more mediations that were via Zoom as opposed to being in office. Some people took their mediation all the way virtual. So it was a turning point. It's a lot of mixed emotions, I think, when people think about that time as well, because we had a lot of loss. But what shifted for a lot of people was like their entire existence, like how they thought about working, how they thought about the world, how they thought about just living in general. It shifted the perspective and the mindset of so many people. It's unreal.
No, it truly is. Truly, truly. So let's talk about life before law school. Did you know lawyers growing up?
Not many, actually. My situation was one where being an attorney was spoken over my life like when I was 7. That's what I don't know why that came into their minds. And I took the wayward path to get there now, but I did still get there because they thought I wasn't gonna get there. They was like, "Girl, what are you doing?" But I did get there. But that was something that was spoken over my life. What solidified my interest in being an attorney was I was in a youth judicial program. And that was in, I think it was like 7th grade, eighth grade, something around there. And our guidance counselor got a group of us together and was like, "This is last minute. I just found out about it, but I think that we should try it out." And we had never done anything like that before. We had never been in competition in that kind of space. But I thought it was really interesting. And they gave us a case and we had to prepare for either side. And we went in and we competed and we did win, a few of the rounds. We didn't place in the end, but that really solidified because I did that one and I also did a youth legislative program. And I was interested in both, but I was like, "Oh, I really enjoyed the preparation, for the case and all that kind of stuff." So that was something that was in the back of my mind, from a very young age.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I've seen different flyers about those kind of things and even like a debate club and stuff. I can't say whether or not I was interested, and I definitely don't think it would have inspired me to go on to law school because
Hmm.
I had a wayward way of getting to law school too, just because
Hmm.
I went to undergrad and I just was ready to work. I was like, get me
Okay.
a job. Like, I'm ready to get out and work. But then I kept thinking about being a lawyer, and I didn't go to school until I was 28, was when I went to law
Okay.
school, because I just kept thinking about it. And I was like, what is this thing with law school? So it just wouldn't shake.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
your wayward journey like? Were you doing something else before you decided, or did you go to law school and then do other stuff?
So, okay, I'm gonna try to make this short, but it was way work. So,
Okay.
like a lot of people, went to college right after high school. I went to Tennessee State University. I graduated, went to college, and then I went into law school right after college. So I'm in my early 20s. But my grandfather got sick, and my grandparents were like my parents. They raised me. And so he got sick. We didn't know if he was going to make it. It was looking kind of bad. So I decided that I would go back home because there was a lot of things going on that were associated with his illness that my grandmother needed help with that I didn't know was going on until, the last minute. So anyway, fast forward, he made a full recovery at that time. And I did not have an option to put law school on hold because I had technically gone through the entire semester, but I wasn't there to sit for our exams. And so I couldn't finish and then they couldn't give me, they couldn't say, "Oh, we can hold your spot," because technically you're going through the whole program. And so, anyway, I decided that I was going to still live in Houston, but that I would, travel back and forth, try to, make sure that everything was going okay at home. And then I started a career in nonprofit. And I started as a program assistant, and then I ended up as a quality compliance coordinator. And then after that, I was like, well, I need to do what I said I was going to do because I was then like 30. And I was like, I've been out, for a minute. So what are we doing? And so I resigned and went back to school. I had to take the LSAT again, reapplied, ended up being accepted into Thurgood again because that was my first go around. I was at Thurgood. So they accepted me again. And I started when I was 31. So that was my second career ish. But I was also a massage therapist for 8 years. So I've lived a lot of lives.
I have too, and I think that just speaks to how we're problem solvers, right? Because at the time I'm sure we're looking for a job. You're like, oh, program assistant, I can do
Hmm.
that. And maybe you
Hmm.
had interest in customer service. You were like, massage therapy, okay, sure, I can do that. Or even your
Absolutely.
caregiver training from working with your grandparents, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, and I appreciate all the details. Whenever I say, tell me a story, give me the long story. I want all the details. So
Right.
but I think it plays into how you're able to create this career and this life now, making it look like whatever you want, right? I think all of that is tied in. Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that we absolutely should have people in every profession who have the straight path, who have the wayward path, who have the in between, because that to somebody is going to be confirmation that their journey is absolutely possible. So yeah, I think all of the paths are necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And you actually practice probate and estate law.
I do. I
So,
do.
yeah. And so, for any law students that are listening, that is either the transferring of a will or creating a will and dealing with estate planning. I'm from Ohio. And so, when I hear estate, I think your plot of land, but it can include that. It also includes who would receive the things after you pass. And yeah.
Absolutely. So the estate planning side is, a person coming to me or a family or a company, owner of a company, and they're coming to me and they're saying, I want to make a determination about what's going to happen to all of my assets, all of them. And when I say all of them, a lot of people just think land or money, but it could be IP. If you own a company, you got to think that if you're an art collector, your art, there's so many different things that people don't think about, when it comes to estate planning. But that's before a person passes away. But afterwards is the probate side, and this is in Texas because I'm in Texas. But the probate side is when someone passes away and they don't have a will, or if they have a will and they need that will probated, because a lot of people forget about that too. You have to probate the will if you have it. It's nice that you have it, but you have to get your letters. So it's just things like that. But yes, so those are I practice on both sides, and in Texas, guardianships are underneath the probate code as well. So I became certified to handle guardianships, and that's of children or adults.
Okay. And so, is probate and estate planning, is that what you plan to practice in when you were in law school, or did it change?
No, I am one of those who did not know what I wanted to do. Now, what I can say is that I found myself in the probate law clinic in my last year of law school, because I think in your last year, that's when you can participate in the clinics. But I believe that made an impression on me more than I knew at the time, because I was just going through the whole thing. But I think it did make an impression on me in some way, and that became a part of my practice, pretty early on.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
I commend you for that. When you do criminal law, you're dealing with someone's freedom or maybe, a prison sentence or something, or just harm. When you do probate and guardianship, that's dealing with people and their loved ones and their money. And that is hard too.
It can be, it can be. I actually really like the probate and guardianship side of it. I enjoy it a lot. But yes, you're right. It's very familial in nature. And I think that people kind of forget that, because they're thinking, oh, the person has passed away. Yes, but I'm not dealing with that person. I'm dealing with their family. So I also practice on the family law side. So that is definitely familial, but I'm very selective about those cases. I don't take every family law case that I get.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned that because you're also an author. You wrote a book called The Last Laugh, which is a great title. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
And it's an estate planning journal. And I got the idea because an attorney came into one of the attorney groups that I belong to on Facebook, I believe. And she said, "Does anybody have the equivalent of this book?" And she posted another, like, and nobody knew. And so she said, "I wish that an attorney would do something like that, make a journal or something like that." And that stuck with me. And I was like, that is a good idea because it'll come from a different perspective, like it'll come from a person who handles estate planning before the person passes and, has seen what things are like on the other end if the person does not plan and, we have to declare heirs and such. But I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad that you brought it up because, like a lot of professionals, we sometimes lack in promoting those things, right? And so I'm like, I need to get back on my grind with that.
Absolutely. I'll make sure I pick one up, even though I'm in Ohio, but my husband and I, we've been doing our estate planning, and I'm like, we're just too young. But also, as a lawyer, I have to have one because it's just, I have no
No,
excuse to not have
no,
one.
and
And
and it's not, yes, and I'm so glad that you said that though, because that's one of the things that I address whenever I'm talking about probate. And I always say, you're never too young. I had an attorney that I know to do mine. And I could do my own, but I didn't want to. It's already enough thinking about your own mortality, but also wanting to be the person that drafted it may work for you, but for me, I needed somebody else to do that, because it took enough for me to say, okay, I need to get this done. And I like to think of it as the final act of love that you can give to your family, because they don't have to go into probate court and do all these unnecessary things if you would maybe just do those things and handle those things for them. That's how I try to approach it. It's not an easy topic, but it's
yeah,
necessary.
it's necessary. And I think when you frame it the way you just did, the last act of love,
Mm-hmm.
that is so sweet.
Yeah,
I
it
got
is.
goosebumps. I'm like, wow, that's a great way to think about it. So let's talk about being a lawyer and running a business
Mm-hmm.
because you have a social media page, and I think your handle is your Rebel Esquire, which I think
You're
is
Rebel
hilarious.
JD.
Okay, your Rebel
You're Rebel
JD.
JD. Yeah, and I picked that because um I am a person where I have heard a couple times when people ask me finally, like, what do you do? And I say what I do, then they're like, "Well, really?" And people think that I should be offended, but I'm not, because I know that it comes from a space of thinking that persons in this profession are just one way, that we're one dimensional, that we're all very serious, and that we're, and all the time, and that we're stark, and that's true sometimes when we have to be, maybe, but that's not true all the time. We talk about not being a monolith, but we really aren't, as professionals, as women, as Black women, particularly, we're not a monolith. So I think that that's why people say that. Like, I didn't know that. I wouldn't, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Outsider Approach.
Hmm.
And if you hadn't heard of it, I think you would love it. I hadn't heard of the founder, Sierra Rogers, and
Hmm.
it is amazing. Literally from the first book or for the first page, it's like, this is how your life is supposed to go. And this is exactly how I went. And I was like, I could have wrote this book. It's so good. So yeah, I love it when people tell me you don't look like a lawyer. I'm like, well, because the lawyers you know are probably the lawyers you've seen on TV. And so that's okay.
Yeah.
But
And I mean, we're
yeah.
around lawyers all the time, and so we know that it's the personalities are there, and I would say we're some of the funniest, but I know that I'm biased, but I love it too. It's always funny to me.
Yeah. If nothing else, we're the most sarcastic.
Definitely the most sarcastic, absolutely. And that's my type of humor. One of my types of humor is dry and
Yes.
sarcastic. Yes.
Yeah. So, Nikita, my last question, and I ask this of every guest, what would you say to a young lawyer, 5 years practicing or less, or a law student about what they can do with their law degree?
Any and everything. I would say that the possibilities are endless. And if I'm speaking to a young person who has not yet even picked a major yet for college, I would say do what you like to do. If you are interested in a philosophy, do it. It's not a one-way ticket to, law school, meaning that you don't have to be a poli sci major, you don't have to be an English major. And so the time that I grew up in, and I date myself all the time, is the time where it was like, these are the ways, these are the pathways, these are the only ways, and I'm a poli sci major. But I tell people, do something that you're interested in, that you love, especially if you're talking about college, and you'll do well at it, you'll excel at it. But if it's something that you think you have to do, you may still excel in it, but it's not going to be as enjoyable, I don't think. If I'm talking to a young person who is in law school and, maybe they're not one of the ones who know exactly what they want to do, right? Because we always talk to the ones who know what they want to do. We talk to them all the time. We give them the guidelines but for those individuals who are not like that, who are the outliers, who are the ADHD, late bloomers, all of that, we don't really have a lot of talk to them. So if a person is in this space and they don't know, I would say that's okay. It's okay if you don't know, soak in the experience, get involved, where you can. Don't overload yourself though, and it'll be okay. Like it's going to be fine. Everything is going to work out. Young lawyer, I would say find some peers who have been practicing a lot longer than you. I'm not going to say mentors because everybody isn't going to be your full blown mentor. Some of the people who have contributed to the most to my career, we didn't give them that title. They never took that title, but they were like so important to the structure of my career in the beginning. So find some people who are like that. And they're out there. They don't have to be in your immediate circle. If you have an alumni group, reach out to some of those. But if they don't work out, reach out outside of that group. You know what I'm saying? Like always look to expand your network outside of the network where you're most comfortable, because you'll be surprised what comes out of those networks, the ones where no one. Those are actually some of the best ones. So yeah, those are just some things that I would say, to persons in different spaces on their journey to Esquire.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate that the advice was different for each group because they are in different stages. And
Absolutely.
I was making notes here because I talk to undergrad pre law students, but I
Hmm.
don't talk to people who don't know if they want to go into law. And that's probably everyone else. So I'm gonna challenge myself to try to find them
Hmm.
because I would not have been in that pre-law group and I
Right.
ended up in law school. So yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating, fascinating. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nikita. I think this was
Absolutely.
phenomenal. And I will make sure we tag your journal so that people can pick it up. Would you share your website with the audience?
Yes. So my website is www.lamarlegalgroup.com, and that's my last name is Lamar legalgroup.com. And there you'll find, all of the practice areas for us. You'll also find my newest entrepreneurial pursuit, which is divorce retreat. You'll find that on there as well, information about that. So, yep, that's how you'll find me. And I'm Lamar Legal Group, or Nikita Lamar, on most of my platforms except for IG. Like you said, that was different.
Yes. So, real quick though, what's this divorce retreat? Tell me,
So
tell me.
essentially, it is a retreat style divorce path for individuals who know that they want to go through the process and they want to do it amicably. Because we don't talk about those things a lot, especially in Houston and in the Texas area, because we like to fight. We like to fight. But I have seen it so much and seen the ways in which it affects the familial structure in not such great ways. And so because of that, I came up with that idea for persons to have another option, because there's so many options for you when you're, talking about ending, your marriage. And so people need to know that.
I got to know more. So, amicable divorce. I actually
Yeah.
worked in a divorce clinic when I was in law school, and we actually would
Okay.
go to the 19th JDC in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Hmm. Hmm.
And both couples, both people would come in and you would fill out the paperwork with them because it was
Hmm.
amicable.
Hmm.
So, is it a weekend? Is it a 2 week? And you guys just are fully
So yeah.
engrossed in
Yes, that's what
talking
it
it
is.
through?
I got the idea from something that I saw prior to me even being an attorney. And it was a place in somewhere like New Zealand or Switzerland or somewhere like that, the more progressive spaces in those areas like divorce. And essentially, it was a divorce hotel. And you check in on a Friday, and you check out on, say, Saturday, Sunday, and you're divorced. Like, everything is done. Now, of course, their systems are going to be different there in terms of what finalization means. But with us, of course, there's some additional paperwork that we have to get together once the retreat is over. And I say retreat because the persons have the option of either a stay at a hotel or they can come into the office, but it still will be retreat style, meaning that we'll, have perks and things like that there. And then we also have the ability to bring on, say, a financial analyst. If they have a portfolio or in real estate, we have connections with real estate agents that can come in. So we basically, it's a package for you. You don't have to pay two separate attorneys to do the same thing, because it's being all supervised by an attorney, and everybody who's involved, is an attorney. We have two different persons who are assigned for you to ask questions, to, because we want to make sure that everything is neutral, no one has any advantages. And you can ask that person questions about what the laws are, and then we come in and the mediator handles the mediation. And just because people agree to be amicable and they want to, come to us, that doesn't mean that they have everything ironed out. No, that's the purpose of, but what they do know is that they do not want to go through the contested, lane. They don't want to do litigation. They don't want to do that. So that's the most important thing. It's not for everybody. Because, if you're in the space to want to fight, then I'm not going to recommend that, because that's not where you are. But yeah, I am collaboratively trained, because we have something in Texas called collaborative divorce. So I've done that, and I'm a mediator. So, and I've gone through, through trials. So I've done the litigation piece. So I've seen it from so many different sides. I was just like, I really want to do something where collaborative law and mediation is combined. And so that's
Mhm.
where Divorce Retreat came in.
That is phenomenal. I think that's really, really good. And what I really like about this whole conversation is that you're showing to us how you can get seeds of ideas and then you can implement it. Because as I'm sure you can get an idea every hour and you can't always act on them. But the probate and estate planning journal, and then the divorce retreat, and even your law firm being virtual, you said, no, these things are worth my time to actually create. And that is really, really powerful. Like, that speaks to what you just said, that you can create anything with your law degree. So I think that's really, really good. Well, thank you so much. This was
No,
phenomenal.
thank you.
You're a pioneer, a futurist lawyer.
I
I love it.
appreciate that, but I really appreciate the space to converse and, do it in a different way. and talk about this profession in a different way, and from a different perspective. So I thank you for providing this space, for these types of conversations. I had a great time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll talk to you
All
later.
right. Bye bye.